Welcome to Co-Pilot Podcasts. Tomorrow, February 18th, millions of Catholics will receive ashes on their foreheads and begin a 40-day journey that's governed by rules most people don't fully understand. Today, we're diving deep into the Lenten Regulations for 2026, specifically from the Diocese of Brooklyn. We'll break down exactly what fasting and abstinence mean, who they apply to, and discover Brooklyn's unique pilgrimage program that takes you to a different parish every single day of Lent. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what you can and can't eat, understand the spiritual purpose behind these practices, and maybe even be inspired to join thousands of others on an incredible journey through Brooklyn and Queens. Let me bring in someone who can walk us through these regulations step by step.
So let's start with the basics. According to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, there are really only 2 days during Lent that require both fasting and abstinence: Ash Wednesday, which is February 18th this year, and Good Friday, April 3rd.
Wait, only 2 days? I think a lot of people assume it's much more restrictive than that.
Exactly. That's a common misconception. All the other Fridays during Lent require abstinence only, so no meat, but not the full fasting requirements. The page content shows that fasting is required for Catholics ages 18 to 59, while abstinence from meat applies to anyone 14 and older.
Okay, so help me understand the difference. What exactly does fasting mean versus abstinence?
Great question. Fasting means limiting the amount of food you consume. On fasting days, you're permitted 1 full meal and 2 smaller meals that together don't equal the quantity of that full meal. No eating between meals, though liquids are allowed. Abstinence is different. It means refraining from eating meat. This includes beef, pork, chicken, and other land animals, but fish and seafood are totally permitted.
So on Ash Wednesday, if you're between 18 and 59, you're doing both, limiting your food intake and avoiding meat. But on regular Fridays during Lent, it's just the no meat rule?
Exactly right. And here's something interesting from the page content. You can drink coffee, tea, juice, milk, and other beverages throughout the day while fasting. The restriction is really about solid food.
That's actually pretty practical. What about things like protein shakes or smoothies?
The Catholic Guide mentions that thick smoothies, protein shakes, or meal replacement drinks are considered food and should be counted as part of your meals. So you can't just live on protein shakes and call it fasting.
Makes sense, no loopholes. Now, what about people who can't follow these rules for health reasons?
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is clear about this. Those excused include the physically or mentally ill, people with chronic illnesses like diabetes, and pregnant or nursing women. The page content emphasizes that when health or ability to work would be seriously affected, the law doesn't oblige.
That's really thoughtful. It's about spiritual discipline, not putting people's health at risk.
Absolutely. And speaking of spiritual discipline, the Diocese of Brooklyn has created something really unique for 2026, a Lenten pilgrimage that runs from February 18th through April 1st.
A pilgrimage? Tell me more about that.
It's fascinating. The pilgrimage invites people to visit a different parish each weekday and Saturday during Lent. So you're literally traveling through the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens, experiencing different church communities.
So every single day of Lent, there's a designated parish?
Yes. The schedule shows it starts at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James in Brooklyn on February 18th, then moves to Our Lady of Perpetual Help in South Ozone Park on the 19th, and continues through dozens of parishes across both boroughs.
That's incredible. What do people actually do when they visit these parishes?
At each stop, pilgrims can join local parishioners for Mass, Eucharistic adoration, prayer, and reflection. It's about experiencing the beauty of different church communities and connecting with fellow Catholics throughout the diocese.
And there's actually an app for this, right?
Yes. They have a free passport app where you can track your pilgrimage progress, do easy location check-ins, submit prayer intentions, view your milestones, and even earn pilgrimage badges. It's like gamifying the spiritual journey.
That's such a modern approach to an ancient practice. Is there any special significance to this year's pilgrimage?
Actually, yes. This year's Lenten pilgrimage is dedicated to the Jubilee for St. Francis, which Pope Leo XIV has proclaimed to mark the 800th anniversary of St. Francis of Assisi's death.
800 years? That's quite a milestone.
It is. And here's something really special. This period offers a plenary indulgence to the faithful who visit Franciscan churches, engage in prayer, and fulfill the standard conditions. The pilgrimage encourages people to imitate St. Francis's life of active charity and simplicity.
So if you visit 20 or more of these station churches, you get some kind of recognition?
Exactly. The page content mentions that if you visit 20 or more of the station churches during the pilgrimage, you qualify for a certificate and special recognition. It's a real commitment. We're talking about visiting churches almost every day for nearly 6 weeks.
That's dedication. Now, I'm curious about how these Lenten rules evolved. Have they always been this way?
Oh, not at all. The page content from the Diocese of Orlando gives us some fascinating history. 60 years ago, in 1966, Pope Paul VI promulgated something called Pienatemini, which dramatically changed the fasting and abstinence laws.
What were the rules like before that?
Much more restrictive. The 1917 Code of Canon Law mandated abstinence every Friday year-round and fasting on all days of Lent. It also required fasting and abstinence on Ash Wednesday, every Friday and Saturday of Lent, plus various other holy days.
Wow, so people were fasting for the entire 40 days of Lent?
Yes, and abstaining from meat every Friday of the year, not just during Lent. The changes in 1966 really simplified things. The National Conference of Catholic Bishops implemented these changes in the U.S., but they only bound Catholics to abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent.
So the church actually made the rules less strict over time?
In terms of specific food restrictions, yes. But the page content shows there was a reason. Pienatemini allowed episcopal conferences to substitute other forms of penance for abstinence and fasting. The focus shifted from rigid rules to meaningful spiritual practice.
That makes sense. And speaking of other forms of penance, I noticed something interesting about digital fasting in the page content.
Yes. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines has called on the faithful to practice digital media fasting this Lent. They're urging Catholics to limit nowlophone and social media use as a modern expression of repentance and renewal.
That's such a contemporary take on an ancient practice.
Exactly. The bishops said that in today's digital age, conversion must address habits that consume time and attention, constant engagement with mobile phones, social media, streaming platforms, and gaming. They emphasize that excessive screen time can weaken prayer life and strain authentic relationships.
What kind of practical steps are they suggesting?
The CBCP encouraged avoiding phone use upon waking and before sleeping, observing device-free meals and gatherings, limiting social media and streaming time, removing distracting applications, and considering 24-hour or weekend digital fasts.
I love that they're not saying technology is bad, but rather encouraging intentional use.
Right. They specifically said that while technology is a blessing when used responsibly, constant connectivity can lead to distraction, mental fatigue, and reduced spiritual awareness. Digital fasting is about transformation, not punishment.
So whether it's food or phones, the underlying principle is the same, creating space for something deeper.
Exactly. The page content emphasizes that Lent is about true inner conversion of heart, not just abstaining from luxuries. As St. John Chrysostom said, not to enable the poor to share in our goods is to steal from them and deprive them of life.
That's a powerful quote. It really connects the personal discipline to social responsibility.
And that's reflected in the traditional 3 pillars of Lent mentioned in the page content: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. It's not just about what you give up, but what you give to others and how you grow spiritually.
The Diocese of Scranton's guidelines mention some practical ways to approach this: giving up things you hunger after, doing things to help others, and adding spiritual practices to your routine.
Yes. They suggest giving up sweets or alcohol, helping those in need with food or clothing, or adding daily mass, stations of the cross, or confession to your routine. It's about both subtraction and addition.
And there's something called the Easter duty mentioned in the Brooklyn Regulations?
Right. After being fully initiated into the Eucharist, all Catholics are bound to receive Holy Communion at least once a year. In the U.S., this period is extended from the first Sunday of Lent through Pentecost, so March 9th through June 8th this year.
So there's flexibility built into even that requirement.
Absolutely. The Church recognizes that people have different circumstances and challenges. The goal is spiritual growth, not rigid compliance for its own sake.
You know, one thing that strikes me about all of this is how the Diocese of Brooklyn has created this really comprehensive approach, traditional fasting rules, but also this innovative pilgrimage program.
It's brilliant, really. They're honoring the ancient traditions while creating new ways for people to engage. The pilgrimage takes you through dozens of different communities, from the Cathedral Basilica of St. James to parishes in Jackson Heights, Douglaton, Middle Village.
And each parish probably has its own character and community.
Exactly. You're experiencing the diversity of Catholic life across Brooklyn and Queens. One day you might be at St. Joan of Arc in Jackson Heights, the next at Holy Cross on Church Avenue in Brooklyn. It's like a spiritual tour of the entire diocese.
And all of this is happening during a season that's fundamentally about preparation and transformation.
Right. The page content reminds us that Lent is a 40-day season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving that begins on Ash Wednesday and ends at sundown on Holy Thursday. It's preparation to celebrate the Lord's resurrection at Easter.
So when you step back from all the specific rules and programs, what's the bigger picture here?
The bigger picture is transformation. Whether you're following the fasting rules, visiting parishes on pilgrimage, or practicing digital fasting, it's all about creating space for God and growing in compassion for others.
And the Diocese of Brooklyn is giving people multiple ways to engage with that transformation, some traditional, some innovative, but all pointing toward the same goal.
Exactly. The regulations aren't just rules to follow, they're invitations to a deeper spiritual life. Whether you're 14 and abstaining from meat for the first time, or 50 and taking on the full pilgrimage challenge, there's a path for everyone.
And that brings us back to where we started. Tomorrow, February 18th, millions of people will begin this journey. But now you know exactly what that journey entails, from the basic fasting rules to the incredible pilgrimage opportunity right here in Brooklyn and Queens. Whether you're Catholic or just curious about these traditions, there's something powerful about a community coming together for 40 days of intentional spiritual practice. Thanks for joining us on Co-Pilot Podcasts, and may your Lenten journey, whatever form it takes, be one of genuine transformation.